Welcome to today's 5-minute Bible study in the book of Joshua. Today we begin looking at Joshua chapter 7. Now, chapter 6 had told the story of their first victory in the promised land. They had taken the city of Jericho. And what a miraculous wonder it was, as God himself had caused the walls of the city to collapse, and they had taken the city with absolutely no problem. It was a great victory. And because of that, the fame of Israel spread throughout the land of Canaan. Look what the God of Israel has done for them. So fear seized the land. Great moment in the history of Israel. However, that great victory is followed up by a great loss and a defeat at their next battle. And it's caused by the presence of sin in the camp. There is sin in the camp of Israel. And chapter 7 tells the story of how that happened. So let's begin reading chapter 7 of Joshua. But the Israelites were unfaithful in regard to the devoted things. Achan, son of Carmi, the son of Zimri, the son of Zerah, of the tribe of Judah, took some of them, and the Lord's anger burned against Israel. So the problem they are about to encounter, which will lead to a defeat in their next battle, is because they were unfaithful, it says, in regard to the devoted things. A man by the name of Achan took some of them. Now, what's this referencing? What's going on here? Now, devoted things are those which are devoted to the Lord. The city of Jericho, because of the great sin of that city, had been placed under the ban, or the city was entirely devoted to the Lord. Now, when you read that in the Old Testament, what that means is, because of the sin of the population, the sin of that place, everything is destroyed. Everything is destroyed. And all of the plunder that comes from the conquest is given over to the Lord. You remember, I think I told you in yesterday's session that normally the plunder would be divided among the victorious troops. However, in this case, all of the plunder is part of those devoted things. So everything is to be given over to the Lord. It's under the ban. It's devoted. But Israel was unfaithful. That is, some of them had been taken for personal use. We're told it was a man by the name of Achan. Now, as we read on in the chapter, he eventually will be discovered. And when they ask him what he took, we're going to fast forward to the end of the chapter. After he's found out, he confesses what he's done. And notice what he says about what he took. Let's move ahead to verse 20 of chapter 7. So Achan replied, "It is true, I have sinned against the Lord, against the God of Israel. This is what I've done. When I saw in the plunder a beautiful robe from Babylonia, 200 shekels of silver, and a bar of gold weighing 50 shekels, I coveted them, and I took them. They're hidden in the ground inside my tent with the silver underneath." So after he's discovered, after he's found out, he admits what he's done, and he says his problem was coveting. He mentions he took a robe from Babylonia, which was very valuable. He took some gold and he took some silver. He said, "I saw them and I coveted them." Now we're immediately back to the Ten Commandments. You remember the commandment, "Thou shalt not covet." For to covet is to desire something that it is inappropriate for you to have. So he desired some of the devoted things. He saw a few things that grabbed his eye, fascinated him. He wanted them. Even though it was inappropriate for him to have them, he coveted them, and so he took them and hid them inside his tent. So his covetousness, his desiring of that which was inappropriate for him to have, because it was one of the devoted things, led to the sin of taking them, hiding them, and now has brought the whole camp into trouble. So you see, when there's sin in the camp, when there's sin in the community, these people are God's people. They're in covenant with the Lord. God has shown his faithfulness to them in this great miracle of delivering the city of Jericho into their hands. And yet, unfaithfulness has been the response. The community has not been faithful through the person of Achan. He has brought disrepute upon the whole of Israel. Now, in tomorrow's session, we're going to see how this leads to their defeat. But today, I just want to emphasize, when you allow sin in the camp, when you allow a spirit of rebellion to grow up in the community of God's people. It began with covetousness, it led to theft, it led to hiding the theft, and all the problems associated with it. Sin always does that. When we allow it into the tent, when we allow it into our lives, when we allow sin to fester, it strains our covenant with God and puts us in a position of disobedience, which leads to the judgment of God. So right after their great victory, sin creeps into the camp. The enemy finds a way in by causing Achan to covet and then to steal. As a result, they're about to be defeated. So you've got sin at the camp. They don't know it at first, but the sin is in the camp. And the next thing we're going to read is a terrible defeat at their next battle, which then leads them to consider what has happened. We'll look at that tomorrow. But today we see what a disaster it is when we allow sin to creep in. Right after a great victory, they allowed sin in, and it caused a terrible defeat. We'll keep talking about this tomorrow. Israel's first defeat in the land of Canaan because of that sin. So join us next time for our 5-minute Bible study in the book of Joshua.